First of all, I'd like to thank you guys for coming. Like we told you, City on the Move every month. We're looking for healthy awarenesses, and we'd like to bring those people, speakers, or we'll do it ourselves, some kind of education to you. Today, we're going to have Miss Erin Pace. She's with UAMS with Arkansas Saves, and she'll tell you a little bit about that. Today, she's going to talk about stroke awareness and to give you the education that you need. Maybe you know someone that's had a stroke, or just even if you haven't or don't know anyone that's had a stroke, maybe you should know the signs yourself. So at this time, we're going to welcome Miss Erin, and I want to make sure that everyone signs in and that you get these little wellness bucks to take back to your supervisor so you'll be approved off without using your time, okay? Here's Miss Erin.
All right, guys, so like she said, my name is Erin, and I'm with Arkansas Saves, and we'll go over that in just a second. The first thing I want to do is I'm here to talk about stroke, right? So we're going to see if you could be at risk for a stroke. So I want to test your knowledge a little bit. I know it's kind of early in the day, but we're going to see if y'all know myth or fact about stroke. So first one, strokes cannot be prevented. Myth or fact? You're correct. So the second one, there is no treatment for strokes. Correct again. I don't know why I'm here if y'all are going to get all these right. Okay, so strokes can happen to anyone at any time. Y'all are on fire. Okay. And what about strokes occur in the heart? You are correct. And strokes are rare. Yeah, y'all answered all these. Y'all can answer the rest of my PowerPoint. Okay. So, quick stroke facts. Stroke is the 5th leading cause of death in the United States. It is the leading cause of disability in adults, and almost 800,000 people in the United States suffer from strokes every year. So that's a large number of people in our population. One stroke every 40 seconds in the United States. So again, we can see why this is the leading cause of disability in the United States. 133,000 deaths each year from strokes, and 6 million stroke survivors in the United States. So that's actually a pretty big number for people surviving from strokes, and we're going to talk about that, how people survive and how they're getting the treatment they need as I go throughout this presentation. And then 80% of strokes are preventable if risk factors are managed. So again, what is a stroke? So a stroke is a brain attack. So lots of people ask that question about the heart because a lot of people think strokes have to do with your heart, and that's incorrect. Strokes actually happen in your brain. So you can have 2 types of a stroke, and we're going to talk about that. One is a blockage, which is the most common type, and we call that an ischemic stroke. The other type is a bursted vessel or a bleed, and we call that a hemorrhagic stroke. So a stroke occurs when blood flow to the brain is blocked or a blood vessel burst. Okay, so like I said, ischemic and hemorrhagic stroke. So a sudden death of brain cells in an area of the brain, and that's due to lack of blood flow to the brain, and then the 2 types of strokes. So like I said, ischemic is more common. It accounts for about 87% of all cases. So again, ischemic stroke is a blockage in your brain. So kind of like a heart attack when you get blockage in your blood vessels and that prevents blood flow to your heart, same thing can happen in your brain. And then hemorrhagic only accounts for 13%, and that's the bleed where a blood vessel would burst. So TIA, has anyone ever heard of a TIA? Okay, so transient ischemic attack. And most people call those a mini stroke, and that's not true. It's actually a warning stroke, because when you have a TIA, you actually experience symptoms of a stroke. They're just smaller and less noticeable, and then they go away. But that doesn't mean that you're fine and you can just hang out at home. You need to go seek medical attention immediately, because it could mean that a stroke is coming, a bigger stroke. It doesn't cause lasting damage, but like we said, it can cause lasting damage if the bigger stroke follows it. And the symptoms can mimic a real stroke. And everyone is at risk for TIAs. Everyone is at risk for a stroke, as a matter of fact. Even infants have strokes. So from the elderly to infants, anyone can have a stroke. So if you have a stroke, we have treatment options. So for the ischemic, the blood clot, we have a medicine called TPA. It's tissue plasminogen activator, and that is the only FDA-approved stroke treatment drug. And what it is it is a clot-busting drug. So if you get to the hospital within a certain amount of hours, does anyone happen to know that answer? How many hours?
3.
It's actually 4.5. We have upped it. It used to be 3, and to be safe, everyone can say 3, because if you're on certain medications, then you can be ineligible for the drug. But for most people, if you get to the hospital within 4.5 hours of the start of symptoms, which I will tell you those in just a second, you can receive this treatment. And it's through an IV, and they go in and give you the IV, and it's pretty much a big blood thinner, and it'll bust up that clot. You can also, if you do not qualify for the drug because you've gotten there too late or you're taking certain blood thinners, they can also go in and physically remove the clot. But my personal opinion is I want to get there as early as possible to get treatment so I don't have to have surgery. The other one is hemorrhagic, and that's the bleed, and that does require surgery. So have y'all ever heard of aneurysms? So your blood vessel walls can get weak and bubble out, kind of balloon out, and it can actually pop. And the ballooning is an aneurysm. And when those pop, that's what causes the bleed. So that's a hemorrhagic stroke. Sometimes if people have a little tiny bleed, the physician, if they know about it, they can actually watch it and make sure it doesn't actually get any bigger. So I said we were going to talk about signs and symptoms of a stroke, and I actually came prepared and brought y'all magnets. So these magnets have the signs and symptoms of a stroke, and so do all the things that I brought. And what our goal is with Arkansas Saves is that everyone in the state of Arkansas have one of these on their refrigerator. Because, I mean, how many times, we're hungry people, we go to the refrigerator all the time, right? We're going to see this. So if you have one of those on your refrigerator, someone might be over at your house or something and see this, and we want everyone to know the signs and symptoms of a stroke so they can get treatment because it's an option now. So B stands for balance. So if all of these symptoms that I'm about to give you is assuming that I was normal, all my functions are normal, and then suddenly one or more of these happen. It can just be one, and someone still needs to call 911. So first one being balance, I'm normal, and then suddenly I lose my balance, I can't stand up, anything like that could mean I'm having a stroke. E is eyesight, so change in one or both eyes. It could be blurry, it could be double vision. In either eyes, suddenly I could be having a stroke. F is for face, so does their smile look uneven? So have y'all seen them? I always want to put a picture up there, but we've just got a smiley man. But if you ask someone to smile and part of their face raises and the other half is just kind of like drooping, that's a telltale sign of a stroke. So that's automatic, call 911. Arms. So does one or both arms drift down? So if you ask them to hold their arms up in front of them and they can only hold one up and the other one falls, or they don't have any movement in their arm and they did a minute ago, that could mean they're having a stroke. And S is for speech. So does it sound strange? If they were talking to you and then suddenly they're talking about someone's cat and monkey and who knows what, it can mean they're having a stroke. Or if they look like they're trying to say something and they're getting frustrated because they can't say the words, that can mean they're having a stroke as well. So any of those symptoms ever occur, it's important to call 911 immediately. Okay. So how to eliminate stroke risk factors. So one risk factor is high blood pressure. So many people have high blood pressure, and that is the leading cause of strokes in the United States is high blood pressure. So it's important to control it. If you're on medicine, take it regularly, because causing a stroke would be from your blood pressure going high to low and you not having that medication to regulate it. So if you think I'm going to take my medicine on Monday, but I don't need it on Tuesday, you're mistaken, because your doctor prescribed it for every day. The other thing is smoking. So we know smoking's bad. Any unhealthy behaviors can all lead to stroke. So smoking is one of them. If you have diabetes, it's important to control your diabetes, eat the diet that your doctor prescribes because that's also a risk factor for a stroke. Eating your fruits and veggies, healthy lifestyle, dieting, exercising, that sort of thing. Again, that's how we can prevent strokes. And taking steps to manage your weight. So if we're obese, overweight, any of those things, again, healthy lifestyle can help you prevent strokes. And then atrial fibrillation, if you have that, talk with your doctor about it because that could put you more at risk for a stroke. And if you're controlling that, then you would be less likely to have a stroke. So those are some things you can't really control. So some that you can control. Sorry, I lost my presentation. So age. Oh, wait. These are things you can't control. I'm sorry. I think I had those backwards. But age is something that you can't control, and the higher and the older you are, the more at risk you can be for a stroke. After the age of 55, the risk factor of having a stroke doubles every 10 years. And then family history. So if your mom, your grandma, your dad, your uncle, anybody had a stroke that's related to you, you could be more at risk for having a stroke. So again, all these things that I'm telling you, it sounds a little depressing, but if you take steps to manage the things that I just talked about and you know how to recognize a stroke, then they can be prevented. So your race or ethnicity. African American race has a much higher risk of stroke deaths than Caucasians do because they have higher risk factors. So hypertension, diabetes, and obesity and smoking. They're typically higher in those areas, which puts them at a greater risk of having a stroke. And gender. Women are at a higher risk of stroke than men. Strokes kill more than twice as many women as breast cancer. So that's a lot. This can be due to changes after menopause, such as blood pressure, cholesterol, and diabetes. And then previous stroke or TIA. So we were talking about TIA being a warning stroke, not a mini stroke. And that's because you need to get to the hospital immediately. Unfortunately, if you've had a stroke before or if you've had a TIA, you are 10 times more likely to have a stroke. So that being said, those BFAST are acronym. I don't know that I mentioned that, but we use BFAST to remember the signs and symptoms of a stroke. So by remembering those and recognizing those, you're not only helping yourself, but you're also helping anyone you're around by identifying a stroke and calling 911. And how do you prevent a stroke? So you need to know your blood pressure, as I spoke about. Have it checked at least twice annually. If you have high blood pressure, it's important to monitor it. Sometimes your doctor will tell you to check it daily, and that is important. If you have AFib, like we talked about, work with your healthcare provider. If you smoke, stop. If you drink alcohol, do so in moderation. If you drink a small amount of wine or alcohol equivalent, it can actually reduce your stroke risk. So it's not necessarily that you can't drink, just do so in moderation. If you have high cholesterol, your high density lipoproteins higher than 200 milligrams or your low density higher than 100, keep an eye on that, talk with your doctor. And diabetes, so if you're diabetic, it can actually cause circulation problems that lead to a stroke. And then your exercise. It's actually recommended that you get 30 minutes of moderate physical activity 5 days a week. So, part of your lunch break, maybe go walking, and then in the evenings go walking. Or 75 minutes twice a week, which sounds horrible to me. I don't want to do that, of vigorous exercise. And also lower salt. So if you consume less salt, you can actually, if you consume too much salt, you can raise your blood pressure. And like I said, that's the number one risk factor for a stroke, so less salt is better. And then if you have a stroke, call 911. If you think you're having a stroke, call 911. What not to do if you're having a stroke. So that's equally as important. Don't deny it. If you have one of those symptoms and you're like, that's not a stroke, I'm not having a stroke, don't doubt it. Just call 911 because it's important to get to the hospital and seek medical attention. those deficits that I was talking about with our BFAST, those can be permanent if it's not treated. So, I mean, some things don't seem as bad as others, but if your vision's blurry, you could not get your vision back. That would be horrible. Or if your faces, had the droopiness, that could all be permanent. Think nothing can be done. We have TPA. We have an FDA-approved drug. It's not been on the market too long, so that's something new that people don't know. So stroke isn't a death sentence anymore. The cost is actually more significant if you're put in a long-term care facility or if you have a family member that has to, quit their job to take care of you because you've had a stroke and didn't get medical attention. It could be upwards of almost $5,000 a month just to take care of a stroke survivor that needs a care provider. And don't worry about the cost. And don't think the symptoms will go away. So actually, every second someone has a stroke, 32,000 brain cells die. 32,000. That's a ton of brain cells. And the thing with a stroke in your brain is if you're having a stroke and your brain cells or brain tissues die, they can't come back to life. So what you've damaged becomes permanent. So we say time is brain, and that is literally time is brain. Every second counts. That's why it's important to get that treatment immediately. And don't have a fear or distrust in your hospital. And I'm about to tell you why. Because we have this program, Arkansas Saves, and we have helped make communities all around Arkansas have access to stroke care. Okay, so Arkansas was number 1 in 2011 for stroke deaths. So people were dying in Arkansas. Out of all the states, we had the highest number of stroke deaths. We're now number 6, so we're making progress, and that's with the help of Arkansas Saves, and I'm about to tell you, again, a little bit more about it. Okay, so Arkansas Saves and what we do. So, I'm sorry, I missed one thing. Have you all ever heard of the stroke belt? We've heard of the Bible Belt, right? So pretty much the same states, so I'm going to list these out for you. Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, North Carolina, South Carolina, Kentucky, and Tennessee. So that's what makes up the stroke belt. And in the stroke belt, back in the 80s, those states accounted for 90% of all of the nation's strokes. So that's 10 states. 10 states made up for all the strokes. So it's us down here in the South. It's our lifestyle. It's the way we live. And if we make changes to that, we can help drastically prevent strokes. So Arkansas Saves is Arkansas Stroke Assistance through Virtual Emergency Support. So what we do is we're going to pretend I'm the one having a stroke. So if I fall out, I would hope that somebody would come call 911 for me. When they call 911, the important thing is not to say, she has a droopy face and she can't keep her balance. Say, hey, I think she's having a stroke, because I just taught y'all the signs and symptoms of a stroke, so y'all now know how to recognize them, right? So when you call 911, tell them you think they're having a stroke. If you're not right, that's fine. They'll figure it out at the hospital. But if you see those signs and you tell them that, then it makes a difference. Because when the ambulance comes to get me, when they take me to the hospital, instead of taking me to a room and trying to figure out, why my face is droopy and why I've lost my balance, which they should know stroke signs and symptoms, but sometimes, it catches you off guard. You're working in the ER and you see all sorts of things. So if you tell them I'm having a stroke, when I go into the emergency room, they don't take me to a bed. They actually take me to the CT machine to get a picture of my brain. Because the way strokes work is if someone is having an ischemic stroke, which is a blood clot, my CT will look clean to begin with if it just happened. And if it's a bleed, they'll see blood in the CT. So when they take that CT back, they're going to look at it, and if it's not bleeding and they think they can give me TPA because they think it's a clot and I'm having stroke symptoms, they actually assess me there. And we have a program, and we have 53 partnering hospitals throughout the state of Arkansas. 53. There's only 60-something hospitals, so we have almost every hospital in Arkansas covered. And they are available to give stroke treatment through TPA. So I was talking to one of the ladies. She said she was from Magnolia. So if she had a stroke and she was down in Magnolia, instead of her having to get on an ambulance and come all the way to UAMS, we said time is brain, right? We don't want to go past that 4.5 hours of her having stroke symptoms. So instead, she goes to her local hospital that's 30 minutes away, and she can get stroke treatment there instead of having to drive all the way here. And the way we do that is the hospital there is partnered with UAMS, and we have what's called a telemedicine program. So you see my guy sticking out of the computer. We have very expensive telemedicine carts, which are pretty much big computers with cameras, where they can look at the patient. The computer with the camera is set up in the Magnolia Hospital, and they can look at the patient from the UAMS neurologist can assess the patient in Magnolia via camera. And the nurses in Magnolia and the ER doctor are going to perform a series of tests. They're non-invasive tests. They just do what we call the NIH stroke scale. And they look at them and determine if they are eligible for TPA or not. And if they are, they can get treatment there. And they just saved hours of time by not having to travel all the way to Little Rock. So this is a map of when, let's see. This is when UAMS first started the Arkansas Saves program. So the little blue pins are our original sites. That was in 2008. The red flags now are all of our sites throughout Arkansas. And so every person is within a 30-minute drive to an Arkansas Saves hospital that can treat a ischemic stroke. So that is part of the reason why Arkansas has went from number 1 in stroke deaths to number 6. 2008 to 2018, we're now 10 years in, and we've dropped it 5 spots. We're down to number 6 now. So, I mean, we're making progress. But part of the reason that we're making this progress is because we go out, our team, the Arkansas Saves teams, go out into the community and educate you guys and educate children and adults and elderly and everyone so they know those stroke signs and symptoms. They have these on their refrigerator, and people are calling 911 and getting help. And so, you know, it's not necessarily that they're preventing them, but they're recognizing them and they're getting treatment and they're not dying. So our stroke mortality rate is going down. And that's obviously what we want to see. So, what can you do? You can know the Be Fast. So, know these. If you have it on your refrigerator, you forget, you can glance at it and say, I remembered. I know. Teach a family member. So like we said, take this home, stick it on your refrigerator. Other people are going to see it. When I go to schools and visit and talk to the children, they learn this, and I tell them, before you stick it on your refrigerator, tell someone at your house these signs and symptoms. So if I go to a school, I went to Huntsville here a couple of months ago, and I spoke with 1,500 kids. So if they go home and tell just one person, that's 3,000 people I reached in a weekend. So that's a lot. That's educating one person at a time, and it turning into 3,000. And then you can also prevent and treat, know that you can help prevent and treat stroke. So like I said, if you want to sit here and think this doesn't apply to you, I mean, it applies to me too. But you can also know for other people that's around you. So, do y'all have any questions for me? Somebody's got to have a question. Yes.
If you see any signs of stroke, is there any over-the-counter medicine that you can possibly take to help?
No. So, you know, if you have a heart attack, they say take a baby aspirin or whatever. But for strokes, no. You want to get to the hospital as soon as possible. And call EMS. So we're actually working in areas of Arkansas where we're looking at seeing if we can administer TPA in an ambulance. So the ambulance is able to call ahead to the doctor. That's why we say that, to tell them you're having a stroke, is because not only is the ambulance coming to get you, but they're actually able to call ahead so that you can get straight to a CT. Because if you drove yourself, even if you go in there and say you're having a stroke, I would bet that they're going to assess you before they take you to get a CT. Anyone else? Yep. It is a irregular heartbeat. Pretty much atrial fibrillation. Yes. And yeah, it's just the irregular, it's a valve in there. And if you have it, or if you think you have it, you know, talk with your doctor about it. It's the blood flow that is what can cause a stroke. Anyone else? Yes.
If you see the symptoms on DFAST and you rush your family member or you to the hospital, do you force that issue that, okay, I think this person is having a stroke, even if the doctor or nurse doesn't particularly feel that that's happening? Do you just force that issue?
I mean, you could. The good thing about our program is, like I said, we are in 53 hospitals. Well, actually, we're in 54. I don't know if I said that or not, but we're in 54 hospitals throughout the state. So most of them know the signs and symptoms, and they have to have regular education for their faculty and staff to know the signs and symptoms of a stroke. But if you get there with a family member and they don't seem to acknowledge it, me personally, I would ask for a CT to make sure that it wasn't a stroke.
My father had his third stroke, and by the third one, we kind of recognized the symptoms. And so on the fourth one, we rushed him to the doctor, and we pushed the issue that he was having a stroke, and they refused to admit him. But we kept pushing the issue, so a couple hours later, we took him back and made them admit him to run the additional test, only to find out he had a full-blown stroke. It's been about 15 days in rehab to recuperate.
And that is one thing that can help when you call EMS, when you call 911, is that, they're a little, I don't want to say that they're perceived as a higher entity, but, when you come in via ambulance and you say, hey, I think this person's having a stroke, they see it a little more clearly than having a patient's family come in and say they have a stroke. Even though we recognize it, that's why the importance of calling EMS, calling 911, it does make a difference, unfortunately. Yes.
And when you're in the ambulance and they tell you you have to go to the nearest hospital that may not be one of these trained in it, do you have a right to say, no, I want to go to X hospital?
So we have this thing called code stroke now, and I want to say almost every EMS service is a part and that knows, and we're actually working on getting little bands. So if someone has a stroke and they call EMS, then the first thing they do is they put a blue band on you, and they have routes to the nearest stroke treating hospital. So if they think you're having a stroke, you should be going to one of our 54 hospitals, and there are very few, and there's actually another hospital up in Northwest Arkansas that has a stroke program, and so they have a few hospitals that are capable of treating a stroke too. So I want to say out of that, there's only about 4 hospitals in Arkansas that aren't capable. So the EMS facility should know that they're taking you to a stroke capable hospital. And it could be rural Arkansas hospital, and you could be like, I don't want to go to Magnolia or Nashville, Arkansas, but those hospitals are actually capable. If y'all get time, we have a website, arkansassaves@ums.edu. Go check it out and see all of our hospitals that we actually have. It's amazing. The littlest hospital nursing home is capable of treating a stroke. Anyone? Yes.
Are there any plans to equip those hospitals that don't have equipment?
Yes, we are hoping that every hospital in Arkansas will be stroke capable, whether it's with our program or with the other one, by the end of 2019. Anyone else? Okay. Oh, I also brought items. So I told you about the magnets. Feel free to pick up a magnet. I have ink pens that have the stroke signs and symptoms on here, and also have a little brochure that has more information about strokes and the risk factors on the back in case you forget. So help yourself. Take more than one of these. I brought plenty. So if you don't just have it on your refrigerator, give it to someone else that you think could actually use it. Various things that could be an issue with a birth or birth defect. The infant stroke symptoms are not necessarily the same as these. These are more adult stroke symptoms. But we just like to stress the importance that infants can have strokes. It can literally happen to anyone. But the cause of those, there's a number of causes, and honestly, more so a neurologist question than for me.
All right.
we want to thank you, Aaron, for coming out and sharing all this great information with us. We know this is very important, and I think you say you have some magnets over there, so let's make sure everyone gets a magnet and that we're aware, make sure we stay alert and know kind of, what's going on with ourselves, our family members, things like that. At this time, we want to, again, thank Aaron for coming out. Thank you all for coming out and sharing this time with us and getting some great information. We also want to recognize the champions, our health and wellness champions that came today and brought someone with you. The champions can stand, please. Okay, all right. We have our health and wellness champion. For the ones that do not know what the champions are, these are the people in your departments that are disseminating health and wellness information from here, okay? Because, as the city and how big it is and all the different departments, we don't have a chance to get out to everybody, and we're not in each department every day, but you work with someone that's there with you, and they're your champions. They're the ones that are getting firsthand information for all the programs, different things that we're sending out, different things that we're trying to put in place. So your champions are there getting the information. They're disseminating it out to you guys. When we have meetings, when we have events, they're the first line that knows about those things. So again, thank you, champions, for coming. We are going to recognize the champion that brought the most because they had a kind of a competition amongst themselves. The champions that brought the most people with them. We would like to recognize that person. And I guess, will you stand, Miss Monica? Okay. Okay. All right. She's a champion for Fleet, and we believe she brought the most. Anyone have more than, what you got, 6, 7 people with yourself? 7? Anyone else brought more than 7? Any champion brought more than 7 people? Okay, Gail. No, Gail, you can't win today. So again, thank you, Monica, for keeping your people informed and bringing you guys out. We appreciate that. Please share the food. Take whatever you want from the table there. We brought, make sure you have healthy refreshments, water that has the different things in it, the fruit in it, the pineapple. All those things have different things that they do for your body. The pineapples, the strawberries, the berries, they all do something different in your system. So partake in the food. Thank you for coming. Anything else, Gail?
They just need to get their wellness books and take back to their supervisor when they go back, so they don't get charged time.
Okay. All right. Gail has wellness bucks to show that you were here at the event today. So make sure you get that. So as Gail said, your time is not charged. Okay. Again, thank you for coming out. We appreciate you.